Hello, I'm Lucian, Hudson, Director of Communications. Welcome to Spotlight. Our focus today is the Oecumene project. The full title of Oecumene is Oecumene, Citizenship After Orientalism. It's a global project interested in what citizens do and how citizens act. In my conversation with Jack Harrington and Zaki Nahabu, we looked at the project in terms of how important it was for social sciences. Jack talked about the impact of the project, and Zaki spoke about his feelings and experience of being a PhD student. Today I'm joined by other key colleagues on the project. I'm joined by Tara Atluri, Alessandra Marino, and Lisa Pilgram. Tara, can I ask you first, what's your specific area of research?
My research looks at forms of gendered and sexual citizenship after Orientalism in the Indian subcontinent. So I'm interested in how certain modes of sexual politics existed before British colonialism. And this is the archival part of my work. The other part of my work actually looks at fieldwork in India. So recently I was in India and I was also there in December when there were massive protests regarding a gang rape of a young woman in New Delhi that led to her murder. And so I'm looking also at how people on the streets of India are enacting modes of citizenship outside of Orientalist discourse and outside of the rule of law.
Can you tell me about what specific areas of your research relates to citizenship after Orientalism?
Right, so Engin Aysen, who's the principal investigator of our project, has written an introduction to an issue of citizenship studies, and he talks about three ways in which we are looking at citizenship after Orientalism that are distinct but also interrelated. So firstly, he talks about undoing citizenship, undoing the figure of the European citizen who stands in as the normal citizen. Then he talks about uncovering. So uncovering forms of citizenship that existed before this idea of the modernist subject became the norm. And then finally he talks about reinventing forms of citizenship, so new forms of citizenship that exist outside of law. And my work relates to all of this in the sense that I want to undo this idea of a gendered and sexual subject that is only counted in law and that attains all of its political subjectivity through rights. Then secondly, my work then looks at uncovering ways in which sexual politics in India has always existed outside of this kind of legal rights-bearing Occidentalist subject. And then finally, I'm looking at reinventing citizenship. So on the streets of India in December of 2012, when there was this gang rape and murder of this young woman, you saw the people of India reinventing modes of sexual and gendered citizenship that didn't exist in law. So young people in Delhi were marching through the streets under taglines that said things like kind-hearted souls, right? And they were trying to enact new forms of gendered politics that maybe can't be counted within ideas of legal rights.
So it goes beyond legal rights. It might take into account legal rights,
right,
but it's seeing things afresh.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The theory of this is fascinating, but there's so much that goes on in practice. And Alexandra, I'd like you to talk to me about what happens in practice in the field with empirical cases.
Thanks for the question. I think Tara already pointed at the fact that you can't really talk about the theory of citizenship without linking it to what happens in the street. And I think the very idea of Oecumene is rethinking the theory of citizenship and how we think about citizenship as a Western concept or citizenship linked to legality, to the idea of Western legality. But we come to that question. That question is not pre-given. We come to that question after considering how, on the ground, people claim rights, act as citizens, or migrants ask for new rights, and that is the starting point for new investigations. In my case, in particular, that translated into research in the field in India, where I work on the struggles of indigenous people for land, water, education. And I work in two different fields, one in central India, where there was a struggle against the construction of a dam that started more than 25 years ago. And I worked with the people there, with the activists, with the adivasis, and the same approach. I took the same approach to deal with another case in West Bengal, where there is an association for a particular tribe, the Career Shabazz, and I got interested in that through literature, which is the lens of my field of investigation.
That's very interesting. So, to what extent is the project, by definition, quite interdisciplinary, involving more than one discipline and involving the collaboration of different disciplines?
It is interdisciplinary in two ways. One is the fact that we are quite a big group and we all come from different disciplines. Interdisciplinarity in academia can be quite a buzzword, but it's very difficult in practice to put together people that look at things from different perspectives. What we did was, over the course of 2 long years, we kept on meeting and sharing readings and points of view. So what happened was that not only I got in touch with works that I wouldn't have read before, but also I took a different angle in rereading my own discipline. And I think that's the second thing that happened. First, I got in contact with more works. Second, I rethought literature in relation to its social aim. So my field of investigation now is how concretely and materially literature intervenes in citizenship struggles.
That brings us nicely to you, Lisa. Tell me about your area of research, your specific research.
Yes, I'm conducting my PhD research as part of the Oecumene project. And as Alessandra already mentioned, what's really been great for me is that I'm drawing on various disciplines, and I can share my work with my colleagues who also work in different disciplines and give me different feedback. And I'm looking at Muslim family law in the UK and how it evolves as a legal field in contemporary legal practice. And what I find really interesting about it is that we see how people draw on Muslim family law as well as English family law to arrange their family matters. And I think that's particularly interesting for the Oecumene project because it shows that there is a challenge to that assumption of incompatibility between Muslim law or Sharia law, as we often read about it, and English law in practice, so that people do draw on both of these legal fields and combine them in what I could call probably a hybrid legal field to arrange their very personal matters. And it's just speaking about the field and empirical cases as well. I think also for me, the research has brought me to very interesting places empirically, like as case studies. I've interviewed solicitors who are UK registered solicitors, but who offer something called Islamic legal services. And that means they would issue Muslim marriage certificates or divorce certificates. And they would also draw up Islamic wills that are Sharia compliant wills that also follow UK legal rules, English legal rules. That means they can actually be upheld. And just these very interesting areas, and speaking to people and having the chance to engage with what people do on the ground just has taught me an awful lot. And I think everybody of us brings their cases to the research group and we learn from each other.
This needs some organising, of course. So as a project manager, can you tell me a bit more about the impact and also the knowledge transfer in the project?
Yeah. Well, as the second role that I do have in the project is the project management. And what we're trying to do is to engage with people and to work together with people also beyond the sort of immediate academic community. So we are trying to collaborate with activists, like Tara already mentioned, artists, writers, in the case of Alessandra, for example. There are many more examples. And so we're trying to engage with different groups, including also civil society organizations, for example. And we also hope that we can communicate not only in English language but in other languages. And for that we are working together with translators. So we communicate our research in different languages. We have had Chinese, Arabic, Italian, Spanish, Japanese, French, German, and many more. I do have a long list of them. And these are the things we're trying to do. I think what we're most looking forward to at the moment, which is very exciting, is actually a trip to China. It's a 3-week research journey that we are undertaking as a group, as a whole. And we're going to visit universities in Shanghai, Beijing, and Guangzhou, where we'll meet academics and scholars who work on citizenship issues. And this group of academics will also visit us here at the OU in Milton Keynes in autumn this year. So we'll hope that we will establish really long-term fruitful exchanges, sort of again, as a beyond the immediate community that we already have got. And I think maybe one also very interesting example of our work on knowledge exchange would be an event we're organizing currently at the Teatro Valle in Rome, which is a theater that has been occupied by its resident artists and actors because it was under the threat of being privatized. So they are running this theater by themselves now. And they have invited us to collaborate with them on designing something, an event, where we can communicate our ideas both in academic and artistic ways. So that's going to be a new experiment for us. And this is just a little snapshot of all the really very exciting things that we can do within that project.
I'm very interested by the approach you all adopt, because not only are you observing the world as it's happening, if you like, the reality or the constructed reality that people have of what they do, but you're also, by the sound of it, also looking at how people reflect on that and how that in turn affects their actions. Is that a fair comment?
It definitely is, and I think it's also a process of self-reflection of the work of an academic. Part of my research on writers and how writers intervene in social struggle is also related to rethinking the idea of the author as actually participating in more than one way in the social and political life of the people that the author gets in touch with. And I think this also relates to me as a researcher thinking about my work in relation to the activist work of the people I meet and I want to give light to in my writing. I think it's very important that a researcher feels the responsibility of shedding light on new fields of political activities, but without thinking that you can be transparent to your own work. You got to be in there, and I think it is a very painful process for a researcher, but it's a very productive one.
And I saw lots of nods there from Tara and Lisa. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think some excellent points from Alessandra, and I agree so much, especially this aspect of being connected to activist movements. I think is something that all of our work is really engaged with in terms of looking at and doing research that pertains to things that are happening now, right? That it pertains to actual citizenship struggles and political struggles that are happening in the UK, that are happening in India, and they're happening globally. And so producing the kind of research that not only speaks to what is going on, but that can also contribute possibly to activist movements.
And Lisa, do you have anything to add?
Maybe sort of, again, my project management perspective a little bit combined with research. It's just that I find it fantastic that we have a project that actually allows so many people, and it's 13 of us, to work together. It's quite unusual for social science projects, and I'm really pleased that we've got the funding for that, and it's been just a really fruitful collaboration, and it makes a difference that all of us actually work full-time here at Europe University and are engaged. It just creates that space that we need to develop these ideas.
It's great that Spotlight could capture your project in its evolution, and I look forward to hearing more about the project after China.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.